Welcome to Cherie's weight loss journey. Say hi, Snoopy. Yeah. I was gonna get out here and actually go to the laundromat, but I figured I could wait a couple of more days to do that because I want to be able to give them a good full load. You know, I've been wearing my clothes a couple of days or more, you know, or not wearing clothes because it's hot. Hold on. So it's 8:30 in the morning in Cancer season, and it's already 84 degrees. Yep. I consider that hot. Yes, I do. A part of me, you know, kind of wants to go lakeside or something and chill out and try to get cool from there. Yeah. And another part of me is like, what lake? What lake? Because I don't live on the coast. And even though there is a large body of water, which is, maybe I should go there. Yeah, maybe I should go there. Because the last time I went, it was so crowded and it just wasn't, it wasn't even no parking. So it was really unavailable. But, you know, Cancer season is the house of family. And a lot of people appear to be disappointed about their family. A lot of people are disappointed about their family, right? Even when it's not a situation where there's a lot of extended family situations, right? Extended families where, you know, either one or both of the parents, you know, have created extended families, you know, with other partnerships. And, you know, sometimes the family dynamic has parents, you know, of the same gender. That makes it pretty complicated. All right. But, you know, these are the same people who would say a traditional family was complicated. Okay? At least for them. And they chose an alternative family, and everybody had to adjust. Everybody. It wasn't just something that you could just you know, leave in the confines of the home. At one point, it expanded into our culture, it expanded into society at large, okay? So, you know, it kind of felt like people poo-pooed on the idea of honoring a nuclear family. And, you know, I asked why, right? And then it was, well, they fell out of love, or they wanted something else, or the dynamics, you know, between the two changed so drastically that it was harder to keep it than it was to leave it. Now, yeah, there used to be a saying, you know, cheaper to keep her. And even in this cheaper to keep her situation, the keeping was turning the main woman into the third party, while he placed more significance in a relationship beyond his legal family. And people will say, you know, well, that's their business. They can do what they want to, right? And they are doing what they want to. It's just the consequences of doing that, right? Where, you know, there's only 24 hours in a day. It's not a lot. When, you know, you sectioned it off to where you have to work 8 hours. You have to give yourself at least 2 hours of travel time to get back and forth to work. You know, you have to add another hour to an hour and a half, you know, for breaks and lunch. Long time ago, you know, you used to get paid for 8 hours, and they gave you, you know, a paid lunchtime and paid breaks. At least in some companies. That situation is like extinct. Right? It's definitely on the extinct list, if it exists at all. Or endangered of extinction, or however you want to say it. But that bumps up time allocated to work to 14 hours, even if some of those hours are not then some, you know, they have to put in the extra hours because the work doesn't come easy to them, and so they're using those extra hours, you know, to catch up in the amount of work that was expected of them. Burdensome to try to, for, a man and a woman and children to exist all by themselves, right? So typically people used to, use the courtship to determine, whether or not the family, on both sides, were compatible. Okay, because I'm still seeing people say, well, they had family interference when it came to their relationship. And then sometimes there are family members that get offended when people would bring in their partners and just sort of kind of just dump it on them. This is my partner, like it or not. And yeah. Let's see here. I don't think there's no parking here. No parking, private property. Yeah. So these are some of the reasons why, there's a lot of dissension in families. And it goes even further than that. Even in the nuclear family, you have people who are not educated, on being a parent, right? That creates, favoritisms or unnatural love. that could lead to incest. Okay? What? You want to get around me? What? Get around, get around, get around. So, yeah. I don't know why this guy took the loop in the first place. I can't remember what this place was called. Oh, they changed it to the Tides. They changed the name to the Tides. Wow. It looks like they parted out the property. That's what it looks like. They sure did. Yeah. So and incest is heartbreaking. It's very heartbreaking. But at the same time, you know, to say that it hasn't happened, I don't know. I still feel like, you know, that whole Adam, you know, and Eve coming from his rib. I think that was Lake Colony. Lake Colony. The colonies. I still feel like that was a parable about incest. You know, because you definitely couldn't just outright, you know, say, you know, incest in Genesis? Okay. Although, you know, some people, you know, they'll have their own interpretation. But, yeah. The mere fact that, unless they was doing cloning, you know, in my mind, there's no way that, Eve could have came from Adam's rib, fully grown. Yay, yay, yay. So it's kind of letting me know that since the beginning of recorded time, you know, there's always been dissension. Okay? Now, when I took my psychology class, and they were talking about the relationships between, you know, parents and children, they had stated that there's an age that the child achieves where the love for their caretaker becomes unnatural. And so this could be a hardship on the bond that they had established for so many years, since they had, given birth to their child. I was surprised, that it was in the psychology books because, you don't talk about things like that. However, if you're educated, then you do. They do. They're taught this. And this was I think it was Psychology 100. Okay? The very first course of psychology. So, a lot of times, we take it for granted that everybody is educated, but they're not. We have underdeveloped countries where the majority of the population is not educated. We have tribal companies where they don't even know how to read or write. So or they don't even use money, they just they survive. So anyway, today I'm taking a different approach. I'm doing something different because I like doing different things. I'm eating my Quest bar, right? My Quest bar is 21 grams of protein. And then I just had a Boost, right? Which is another 20 grams of protein. So when I finish this, I will have already had 40 grams of protein. And we're going to go and take a small little walk along this little trail over here. Because, like I said, I'm contemplating about family. I've been contemplating about family. We're in Cancer season. Cancer is the house of family. Right? We are family. Now, hold on. And I'm also going to try to use my selfie stick. Okay? So yeah, I'm kind of afraid that you won't be able to hear me though. So I gotta bring you closer. Now I have a very diverse family. It's diverse in ancestry. And it's diverse in extended family. So yeah. Decided to come down here and they have like a little bay area here. But people who came here, they left a lot of trash here. And it's making it pretty unappealing. And Snoopy is like, nah, we don't need to go down there. So I'm with her. I'm with you. I'm with you, girl. And then over the years, you know, the dynamic of the family had become very hostile, right? When people were the middle class, Leave It to Beaver kind of house, or the house of the Cosbys, you know, professionals living in a, you know, middle class. Hold on. But even though I have a, you know, diverse background, I don't have a problem with it. Hey, come on. But, you know, a lot of times it seems like the problem occurs, you know, because of tradition and because of cultural roles. Okay? Ooh, it's hot out here. I'm telling you. I mean, it's not even 9 o'clock. It's only what, 8:27? Yeah, it's 8:27. And it feels like it done went up in temperature, like it's at least 86 degrees out here. So not only that, you know, there's let's go down here. There's ooh, the mosquitoes. I don't want to go down there either, even though it's cooler. Come on. Even the mosquitoes need some shade. Yeah. But then there came a problem of actually keeping track of the lineage, right? Because it's mama's baby for sure, but you can't always be sure who the daddy is. So there was a switch somewhere in history where they decided, you know, to designated the man to be the name bearer of the children. And I can only assume that was done so that, he would be held, financially responsible for these kids, especially since, they want to keep, women out of the workplace, and has felt like it was better to keep her, guarding the home and raising the children. It makes sense when you put it that way. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to walk. My dog looks like she's getting hot already. Come on. So yeah, and the family reunions, were increasingly getting hostile. As people started showing up and nobody knew who they were except that daddy. Yeah. And then, it had got accepted that, all right, relationships break up, you can have extended families. But the average man out here has at least 3 families. I'll verify that. Oh, sorry. Yeah, my dog is hot. She's trying to walk in my shadow. What's the average number of families a man has had in his life? They're saying that the average number of families a man has lived is not a standard statistic and is heavily influenced by cultural and personal factors like marriage and divorce rates. And so then it wants to talk about it's leaving out the marriage factor, and it went into talking about the number of children he's had. Okay, I'll have to figure out another way to rephrase the question. Wow, that car's been here so long it's got cobwebs on the bumper to the ground. Come on. So, yeah, I'm gonna have to rephrase that because that's another way that families have changed. That families have changed where the men aren't marrying the women that they have children with. Hold on. Now, I can say both my parents remarried. And my father had kids with women that he did not marry also. So that definitely changes the whole dynamic, you know, of the concept of family. Right? And, you know, those celebrations like family reunions, christening, marriages, funerals are usually the time when, you know, unknown families start popping up out of the woodworks. So, yeah, you don't really know who's your family until, you know, an event comes on the horizon tying everything together. I don't think I really like selfies. Okay? I really wish I had a GoPro or a Pocket 3. That's what I want. It's a Pocket 3. DIJ, you know. That's what I would like. Because if I had that, you know, I would show you, you know, more scenery and a little less of me. But I'm too lazy to do that most of the time unless I think it's just something I enjoy and I want to share. Okay? Yeah. So the whole family situation has, you know, has changed dramatically, and on top of that is the dynamics within the families change. And, you know, it's like, okay, mistakes happen, but then when it seems like it was intentional and it was forced upon you, you know, there became a huge resistance, you know, to go along with it. Or you go along with it and there's animosity, you know, amongst the family members, right? And sometimes when there's animosity amongst the family members, then, you know, the family members are typically forced to take a side. Right? They're typically forced to take a side. And that's, you know, understandable, right? I think it's understandable that, you know, if a family member wants to take a side, right, then there's nothing wrong with, you know, not participating, okay? But if we don't allow people to take a side and we try to impose and force them, you know, then we have, you know, then we have problems. We have big problems, sometimes huge problems. inheritance, right? Where, family members, may have thought that there was an intestate situation when, there was a will, but it was a will that was created for the first family. Yeah, heartbreak. This is the Heartbreak Hotel. Yeah, heartbreak. This little area is nice. I wonder if so I'm gonna ride around a little bit and get cooled off because I know my temperature gauge is lying. It's saying it's 79 degrees, but I'm telling you, it's hotter than that. It's hotter than that. So that's why I believe that when there were so many people that had died during the pandemic, and there were people coming up, to get their inheritance from the estate or insurance policy, there was insurance fraud sometimes, and sometimes it was a situation where they, unbeknownst to them, he already had a family. As like in my situation, when my father died, he didn't leave that much. Okay, he did not leave that much. But I thought it was important that my brothers and sisters, half and non-half, receive something. Something. Wasn't much, but I felt like it came on time because people were really suffering financially at the time because we were going through the pandemic. So yeah. Other people, they do not. Now, because I've worked in life insurance, I know that usually you can only have one beneficiary and then a contingent beneficiary. Well, it could be one or two, okay? But and I used to have to advise clients that if you couldn't afford for an executor, you know, then have a family member execute your the benefits after you're gone. As an executor, somebody that you can trust or somebody that you have a contract with, right? And then also, have a contingent. So, yeah. Now, when the Bureau of Indian Affairs, who used to be responsible to hold on to the deeds of landowners of the Indians on the land, they have released that responsibility back to the tribes. They said for autonomy. However, I did my research and found out that they didn't teach, they had no formal authority training on the transference of a property deed. Okay? And you have to understand that a lot of reservations, they kind of operate similar to an underdeveloped country, right? If you go to a reservation, most of the time, they lack government and infrastructure. You can go to almost any reservation and you'll see, that most of the time they invest in maybe a casino to bring in tribal money. Okay, we're getting back to what I was saying. This goes back to the Indians from Alaska, because they got Indians in Alaska also. They're not just Eskimos up there. They're Indians too. Just like they've had Indians in Mexico. But anyway, it was downloaded to me that they had purposefully did that, knowing that there will be Indians that will want to sell their land, right? And that way they wouldn't really have to give them market value, and nor would they have to go through eminent domain to acquire that land in order to drill. So a lot of the land deeds were lost. Okay? The wheels bills supposedly were mailed out to the last address of the known Alati, and that's that. Right? So, pretty shady and very cannibalistic, corrupt, and greedy. Okay? But it was done. And a lot of people who thought that they had, either some money coming or a piece of land coming didn't get it. Backstabbed by either their own family members or their tribal members. Okay? So that was something else that was going on, behind the scenes. That, most people can't connect the dots to. And this has caused a dissension in families. Because in order for that to happen, there was a conspiracy. And conspiracies happen because everybody involved believes that they're going to get paid. That's why you can always follow the money when it comes to conspiracies. If you have excess. And that's why a lot of times, they like to set the evidence on fire. Bury it. Okay? Even though there's been protocols already set in place that just weren't followed. All right? So that's just, it created a division in family and family feuding that will last who knows how long. Because you're talking about there's a significant honoring of the dead, right? That was not fulfilled. And for some people, that is sacrilegious. Okay? They'll never get over it. Never. And then you have those who believe that, ancestors that aren't honored after their death are here hunting haunting us. Okay? Didn't expect that one, did you? No, didn't expect that one. But that's more apparent that it's a possibility because it happened to so many people at the same time. Okay? And now we have a situation where, you know, men don't value the life of women. Okay? Which women were the anchor of the family. All right? So if they're not getting married, they're not honoring the woman. If they're not protecting her in case he's not around anymore, they're not honoring the woman. You know, that's part of the problem right there, is that men haven't gotten out of that mindset that, you know, they're supposed to be the protectors, right? So therefore, they have no responsibilities unless they go to war, because we don't have lions and tigers and bears just running out here willy-nilly. Okay? The clouds have rolled in, so now it's there's a high humidity factor in the air. I can feel my sinuses getting congested, and so a situation where, you know, men who have been, well, let's say both were children, you know, who have been molested, you know, have blamed their mother, claiming that she knew, right? But if she was a traditional woman, a traditional woman was taught to stand by her man, right or wrong, you know, they're Bonnie and Clyde until death do them part. You know, Bonnie and Clyde, them against the world. And that is a traditional concept. Especially 50 years ago. And it still lingers, you know, a residue, right? Now, speaking of residue, when men and women, you know, have conflict in the family, right? Where, say, the man is doing a lot of drinking or doing drugs, or maybe, you know, entertaining too many friends in the household, you know, it can become a political issue because of neighbors, because of CPS, and sometimes, you know, the women will try to caution them, hey, you know, your drinking is getting out of hand. And, you know, you really shouldn't be drinking and having, you know, loud parties, even if the children are asleep, because, you know, there will be complaints by the neighbors, and the neighbors will deem us to be unfit and neglectful parents. But he doesn't see it that way, because of course he's in the altered state of mind, and he's thinking, she's telling me what to do. I'm the king of my castle or not, right? And he might go, you know, 10 toes down and saying, you know, he's gonna keep drinking and smoking in the house because it's his damn house. Okay? And, you know, she may think, well, you know, she's at a crossroads. She's got to do what's best for the children and, you know, try to make an exit. And he might get mad and say, no, you're not taking my kids. And she's telling them, if I leave the kids with you, surely you're not going to be able to keep these kids. Right? That's the whole reason why they were having a conflict anyway, because the woman was trying her best to look out for the kids, right? Because now, you know, she feels like she has to get the kids away from this man who doesn't know that, you know, maybe he's suffering blackouts from getting up and drinking beer first thing in the morning. He thinks he doesn't know what he's doing, right? He's under the influence. And then when he comes out of the being under the influence, he doesn't remember what he's done, good or bad. Now, if he's cognizant of the fact that his behavior may cause him to lose his children, you know, he may try to appeal to family members to take the children, you know, or at least give him that space and time, you know, that he needs in order to be, well, that he feels like he needs in order to indulge in his vices. Now, this is not the same type of situation that he would grant the woman, because he just doesn't. So a lot of them will say, you know, she must have fell in love with another man, or she was bored, or, you know. And honestly, I've seen the difference that happened from the time that I moved here to the Dallas County area. Well, Dallas County area used to be what they call a dry county. And when it was a dry county, you know, even if you wasn't like religious, it just seemed like, you know, they stayed, you know, at least rational. But then once Dallas had became a wet County, the whole thing changed. I'm not saying that they wasn't drinking, and I'm not saying that they were perfect either way. What I'm saying is, once Dallas County had became a wet county, which was one of the reasons why I even moved to Dallas, is because I was like, dry, great. You know, I don't have to even worry about being tempted to do alcohol. And I won't have to worry about, you know, my fiance doing alcohol. You know, because when we left California, you know, California, yeah, they drink morning and night too, right? You can get a drink, you know, during brunch in California. But now you can do that here too, right? Now you can do that here. What I said, you know, before is that we really only know the effects of alcohol after we stop alcohol completely. Once we stop alcohol completely, we recognize that we no longer do the things that we used to do. We don't even talk the way we used to. And yeah, but you know, that's not to say that, you know, people can't see and be disciplined when drinking alcohol. There are some people who can, right? There's some people who can't, but they get away with murder, literally. Okay? I watch a lot of parole hearing videos, and every last one of them that I have seen, the guy would be, or whoever was up for parole was up there, you know, talking about, you know, that they know that they would never do what they did. You know, they only did what they did because they were under the influence of what? Drugs, alcohol, whatever. Okay? And it definitely, you know, brings a whole dynamic. I know when we were growing up and we got dismissed, you know, to our rooms because, you know, Dad was, you know, going to be drinking and smoking weed, you know, we just did it. And it was reinforced, you know. His authority was reinforced by my mother. But, you know, my dad wasn't like some people would do, which is, you know, you got people who, before they even get out of bed, you know, they're lighting up a joint. Popping a pill or two. Having a tequila sunrise. that? Yeah, that's a BMW electrical car. Hmm. It looks nice. It's just so small. It's like too small. It looks smaller than this car. So I'm glad I had a chance to, talk about, some of the effects of how family has changed in its dynamic. And honestly, the family dynamic has changed so much that people crave to have family to the point where they feel like their job co-workers are their family, or their fraternities and churches are their family. Okay? And that gets really problematic. I hadn't really talked about the family, about the foster homes and the orphans and all of that, because, I think that's pretty obvious. That there's really, not only a lack of being a member of their bloodline family, and you know and that there was no family member willing to step up and take care of the family. Yeah, hold on. And then there's like sometimes a competition for family members to compete for attention in these diverse families. And the competition can be anywhere from aesthetics to athleticism, intelligence, or, you know, favor.